How long would Light Yagami's prison sentence be? I just spent the last week rewatching Deathnote, and wow, you really overlook everything Light does, cause it's packaged nicely in an anime format, and it's got me wondering. What would happen if Light's criminal acts actually caught up to him? This guy literally thinks he's God and goes around committing crimes with nothing but a notebook and some fancy writing skills saying it's justice, like Batman. My name is Nathan, and together with Sam, we are the side characters. And I'm breaking down all the crimes Light Yagami commits during Season 1 of Deathnote, and working out exactly how long he'd be rotting away in prison, and trust me, by the end of this, you'll be asking if the Deathnote really works to avoid time behind bars. Crime 1, theft of the Deathnote. Before Light even begins his Deathnote spree, he commits his first crime. Theft. That's right. Light finds the Deathnote just lying there on the ground, conveniently dropped by a bored Shinigami named Ryuk. But let's be real for a sec. No matter how much you believe in fate, taking something that doesn't belong to you is still a crime. And what's the crime for taking an object that holds the power to take anyone out with a name? Grand larceny. Off to a good start, my boy. And I'm sure some legal experts would argue that this is even more serious than regular theft. This isn't your standard stolen wallet. This is an interdimensional intellectual property theft of a powerful artifact. I think grand larceny is fair. Sentence, 5 years. Crime 2, premeditated termination of Kuro Otoharada. Okay, so now that Light has the Deathnote, we know what happens next. He starts using it to take people out. His first target, Kuro Otoharada, a guy who's holding hostages and committing crimes. Sure, that guy's bad, but let's be real, premeditated unaliving is still unaliving, even if the guy's a criminal. What's the famous line? 2 wrongs don't make a right? Well, Light never got that memo. The real kicker here is that Light had time to think about it. He could have called the police or used some less lethal methods, but nope. He decides to write down Otoharada's name in the Deathnote and wipe him off the planet in the most dramatic way possible. That's called calculated first-degree murder. Sentence, 25 years. Crime number 3, mass silence of 23 convicts. But wait, Light isn't just satisfied with a single criminal. After testing the Deathnote on Otoharada, he kicks things into high gear. Over the next few days, Light decides that the entire prison system could use a little cleaning up by eliminating 23 criminals in one fell swoop. Talk about literal overkill. Now, I get it, these guys are criminals, some of them are probably really bad people, but does that mean that Light gets to decide who lives and who doesn't? Objection! Not in a court of law, my friend. It doesn't matter how evil you think the people are. If you're the one pulling the strings from behind the scenes and orchestrating the ending of 23 individuals, that's a mass casualty event by any legal standard. Sentence, 25 years per convict times 23 end of lives. That's 575 years. Crime number 4, attempted termination of L's task force. By now, Light's ambitions have grown. He's not just wiping out criminals anymore. He's targeting the people who stand in his way. The next crime on our list, attempted unaliving. And not just of any average person, no. Light is after the best of the best, L's task force. These are top-tier investigators who are hot on his trail, trying to catch the mysterious Kira criminal. Light uses a well-executed plan, manipulating FBI agents and controlling their actions to have them unwittingly write down the names of L's team members. Now, this is where things get tricky. Sure, he doesn't always succeed, but the key here is that Light intentionally tried to off them. And we all know that attempted unaliving carries serious charges. You're not off the hook just because your plan didn't go through. Wise words for anyone. Sentence, 10 years per attempt, times 12 individuals, 120 years. Crime number 5, manipulation of Ray Penber. But wait, it gets even more sinister. Light doesn't just want to take out people directly, he's an expert at manipulation. Ray Penber, an FBI agent, is a prime example of this. Light uses the Deathnote to force Ray to help him and then takes him out after getting all the info he needs. It's textbook coercion. To make matters worse, Light isn't just asking Ray to do some shady stuff, he's actually making Ray unwittingly write the names of his own colleagues. Light's not just ending people, he's pulling the strings and making others do the dirty work for him. This is manipulation at its most twisted. Sentence, 20 years per coerced unaliving times 12 unalivings, 240 years. Crime number 6, the end of Ray Penber. Ray Penber may have been manipulated into helping Light, but Light wasn't finished with him. Once Ray's usefulness ran out, Light made sure that he's taken out of the equation and with direct intent. Light didn't just act in the heat of the moment, he planned Ray's ending to cover his tracks and protect his identity. The worst part is how Light uses the people around him to execute his will. In this case, he uses the power of the Death Note to eliminate someone who could have eventually turned against him. Cold and calculated. Sentence: 25 years. Crime number 7. Manipulation and ending of Naomi Misora. Let's talk about her for a moment. She's a former FBI agent who is investigating the Kira case after Ray Pember's end. Light uses her grief to manipulate her into confronting him, and then he pushes her to her own perishment by making her write her name in the Death Note. It's hard to argue that Naomi's ending isn't Light's fault. He pushed her to it. Reckless endangerment, emotional abuse, and accidental unaliving all factor into this one. Naomi had no idea what was really happening until it was too late. Sentence: 10 years for endangerment plus 25 years for unaliving, 35 years. Crime number 8. The Yotsuba endings, indirect. After Light loses the Death Note for a while, the Yotsuba group takes over, and they start taking out people using the same methods Light once did. While he doesn't directly write down names during this period, it's important to note that Light's manipulations led to the Yotsuba group's crime spree. They're acting on his past influence, which means Light is still indirectly responsible and could be argued we're adding it regardless. Sentence: 20 years per unaliving times 8 unalives, 160 years. Crime number 9. Unaliving after reclaiming the Death Note. Light gets his beloved crime book back, and naturally picks up right where he left off, ending people with his god complex. This time, he's methodically erasing the opposition. His most notable after regaining the Death Note include several high-profile victims, but the key here is that these are premeditated. Light's not playing defense anymore. He's making sure his power is uncontested. If we're tallying up the deceased left in Light's wake, we know that there's at least 5 after reclaiming the Death Note, each carrying the full weight of first-degree unaliving charges. Light's escalation shows just how far he's willing to go, reinforcing his dangerous shift from vigilante to full-blown assailant. Sentence: 25 years per unalive times 5 unalives, 125 years. Crime number 10. Manipulating Rem to erase L. By far, one of Light's most calculated moves in the series involves manipulating Rem, the Shinigami who's attached to Misa Amane. Rem, who's actually way more emotionally involved in the situation than Light, is convinced to take L's life. Of course, Light doesn't actually write L's name in the Death Note himself. He gets Rem to do it, pulling a fast one by exploiting her sense of duty and love for Misa. This is a big move in Light's overall strategy. He doesn't just get his hands dirty. Instead, he manages to convince Rem that her only option is to end L, something that ultimately works, though it costs Rem her own life. Manipulation aside though, this is still by proxy, and it carries with it the same penalty as if Light did it himself. It's a chilling example of just how far Light will go to eliminate his rivals. Sentence: 25 years. Crime number 11. Tampering with evidence. Throughout the series, Light doesn't just stick to writing names. He's actively destroying evidence to throw off investigators. Whether it's burning pages of the Death Note, manipulating crime scenes, or altering records, Light goes to great lengths to ensure the truth doesn't come to light. Get it? These are serious obstructions of justice offenses. And it's not just a one-time thing. This man's a pro at this, doing it multiple times to cover his tracks. Every piece of evidence he destroys makes it harder for the task force to catch him. While this might seem like a small detail compared to all the crimes, tampering with evidence in a high-profile case like this can be just as damning as his previous unaliving charges. Sentence: 10 years per instance, times 3 instances, 30 years. The grand total. After a closer look at Light Yagami's actions, it's safe to say that his time in prison would be extensive, and that's putting it mildly. If you add up everything, we're looking at a grand total of 1,365 years in prison. That's over 13 centuries of crimes ranging from theft and manipulation to mass unaliving and direct assassination. And let's not even mention the fact that, with the way that the law works, Light's time behind bars wouldn't be nearly as comfortable as his dorm room at Toho University. Maybe it's a little too convenient that Light's got a Death Note to play around with. Here's the real kicker though. Light thought he was saving the world, and yet in the end, his own actions guarantee he'd behind bars for the rest of time. So if you were ever wondering how much prison time Light Yagami would rack up if the law were involved, now you have your answer. Can you think of any other characters that get away with centuries worth of crime? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more anime videos. Don't pick up any random books from the floor.